Well, welcome to Wind Up Wednesdays. Today we're going to focus on part two of our discussion of the deductive tasting process. Today we're going to focus on aroma or nose. A critical part of the process, a big part of our sense of taste comes from what we smell. Our olfactory process is hugely powerful and determines, what we taste in our food and drink. So the component pieces of the aroma portion of the grid, as they call it, is whether or not, the first is whether or not the wine is clean or faulty. If it's clean, it smells clean. If it's faulty, you'll get senses of, maybe some nail polish remover, or it's dirty barnyard, or some sort of vinegar component, or corkiness. The intensity of the aroma, is it a delicate smell? Is it moderate? Is it powerful? There are great varieties that are intensely powerful in their aroma, and it puts them in a special case when you're deducting wines. You'll do an age assessment. Does the wine smell young? Is it developing, or is it an older wine? Fruit, for white wines, you'll look at citrus fruits, like tree fruits, stone fruit, some tropical notes, whether or not there's melon. And for red wines, you'll look at, red fruits, raspberry, strawberry, cherry, black fruits, black plum, black cherry, and then blue fruits, blueberries, all key indicators of what the wine could be. More importantly, you look at the fruit character. Is it a fresh fruit smell? Is that lemon citrus, is it pith or peel, or is it, fresh juice? Is it a jammy note? Is it stewy? Does it taste like it's sunburned, a bit baked? All clear indicators of where the wine could come from. You'll look at some non-fruit issues. You'll look at floral notes. You'll look at vegetal notes. Herbs are a big part of it. Different spice components, could be indicators of oak aging. And then look at the earth, mushroom, forest floor. Is it fresh? Is it, does it smell musty? You'll look at mineral components, good old rocks, is it chalky? Is it slaty? I taste, like wines like Beaujolais for me have a very sort of granitic quality, sort of this black earth quality. And then you'll look at, like wood. With oak being the focus here, is it new oak? Is it old oak? Is it large format wood? Is it small French oak? Is it no oak? Is it stainless steel or some other neutral vessel? And these are all indicators of, how the wine is made. It sort of lumps it into geographical locations. Once again, in the old world, there are rules that people have to follow and guidelines that kind of point them in directions on how the wine is processed. So in the deductive method, these are all sort of useful tools to guide you down a path to hopefully get an accurate conclusion. So in the moment, we'll just go through and we'll taste one of the whites and one of the reds that we were looking at during our site process to talk about them from an aromatic point of view. I said taste, I meant smell. Anyway, let's move on. So let's go through and taste our white wine. We had what we established was a clear white wine, yada, yada, yada. No evidence of gas flocculation, star bright, all of those good things. I was concluding that it was possibly cold climate based on the fact that it was, kind of pale and some, some green notes on the edge. That's not necessarily a thing, but once again, the aroma portion of the tasting will begin to sort of open up that box a little bit. So first thing we do, two things. One, I smell without swirling, and then I do a little swirl and give it another smell. So our first box that we're going to check is whether or not the wine is clean or faulty. This wine is absolutely clean. There's no evidence of any kind of cork taint or anything that would be considered a fault. The intensity of the wine is kind of powerful. It really pops in the glass. There's a lot of aromas that come out, and they're out there. They're self-evident. The age assessment on this wine is that it is youthful. There are, lots of fresh notes coming through, and I'll go into this descriptive side of it now. So starting with, sort of citrus fruits, there's this, really fresh lime lemon component. It's zesty. There's a pink grapefruit component. Once again, zesty. I get a hint of like a ripe peach, almost like a canned peach quality. I also get some papaya, passion fruit. There's a little bit of kind of a riper green melon note, and then just a hint of like kind of like just like a very ripe pineapple note. So lots of citrus notes coming off on this wine. A little bit of tree fruit in the peach. But really, very sort of, citrusy and juicy in the palate. There's a little bit of a white flower note coming through. The fruit character in the wine is very fresh, although I did pick up on a little bit of a can quality on the pear and, ripeness of the melon. There's a ripeness to the fruit, but the quality is fresh. Now, the ripeness to me, it talks about climate. That this wine possibly could be coming from a warmer region. Non-fruit notes are, as I said, the white flower. There's a little bit of a boxwood note. Herbal notes for me are a little bit of a crushed basil, a little bit of a fennel. It has just a hint towards anise, but more of sort of that fennel root note. Not a lot of sort of earthiness to it. Maybe just a hint of, kind of a white button mushroom, but once again, very fresh, not giving off a lot of decaying notes. Not a ton of minerality. I get a little bit of a sort of a wet white rock, almost like after a rain kind of thing, but not a ton of minerality screeching out. So this could be leaning me towards kind of a New World component. Wines from the Old World are sometimes led by their mineralities. So the fact that this is a little more muted could be an indication that we're going in that direction. And as far as wood aging is concerned, I don't get any evidence of new wood. There's no vanilla, there's no kind of cinnamon or clove or anything like that coming through. I think this wine is fermented in a very, very neutral vessel, in a very clean vessel, probably stainless steel. So with that said, a good amount of information coming off on the aroma side of it. Given the fact that there's ripeness to the fruit, there's an abundance of kind of tropical fruit notes, and the powerful intensity of the fruit, with the lack of minerality and some other things, is sending me in a direction. Mission accomplished on the aroma portion of the white wine. Okay, so now to taste the red wine. So the wine that I had chosen was the lighter of the two reds that we had before. And the one thing that I didn't talk about with sight and on these wines, which I should have, was translucent versus opaque. So this wine is translucent, meaning I can essentially see my hands as I look at the wine through the glass. Whereas the other wine that was deeper purple in quality was what I consider opaque, very, very impossible to see through. So what that tells me is we're potentially dealing with a thin-skinned grape varietal, which is pretty useful information. So with that said, we had a red wine that was a medium ruby of medium intensity, leading to a bit of a garnet rim. There was not really any staining of the glass. There were legs indicating either some residual sweetness, high extract, or high alcohol. So let's get into the nose. So on the nose, the wine is clean, but there's a little bit of a sort of a saddle leather quality to the wine. It's not at a fault, but it does indicate, the potential of maybe some Brettanomyces. There's also a little bit of a volatile note on the wine, possibly, some volatile acidity as well. But neither of those conditions are at a level that would be considered a fault. They're actually adding to the wine. So the intensity is moderate plus. Lots of lovely floral notes coming through. The age assessment on this wine is developing. So the aromas that are coming through are starting to, hit a little bit of a decayed note. There's some more tertiary notes of, sort of leather and, dirty mushroom and things like that coming through. So for red wine, we're going to assess, the fruit from a red, black, and blue perspective. This particular wine is driven by red fruit and black fruit. It's red cherry, it's pomegranate, black plum. It has a little bit of a kind of a raspberry liqueur quality to it, or almost like a raspberry cough drop, where there's just a little bit of a sort of a eucalyptus note on the back as well. There's like an orange zest note, almost leading towards, some kind of like orange-driven, Amaro. From a floral perspective, this is, crushed rose petal. It's lightly crushed purple violets. I get herbs of, dried thyme, dried oregano. There's a beef bouillon quality to the wine. There's a real kind of beefiness to it. The mineral component on this wine, to me, it smells like kind of, like a cold soil, like a cold clay, like a red clay. There's a sanguine quality to the wine. There's a little bit of a bloodiness to it. And then from an earthy perspective, definitely get mushroom, they're decayed, sort of brown mushrooms, decayed porcini, decayed shiitake, all leaning towards that assessment of the wine being a developing wine, not a youthful wine, and not an aged wine. It's still moving in that direction of development, but definitely a developing wine. So, assessing for oak, there's a little bit of a cinnamon note to the wine. It's not excessive. There is a black walnut aroma coming through to me, which is a real indicator of oxidation. Given sort of the color assessment that we had, that ruby wine leading to a garnet rim, the notes of oxidation on the nose with black walnut, etc., leads me to believe that the oak vessels on this wine are of an old oak component, but also of a large oak vessel. So in Italy, they would use Boti, and in Spain, they would use large oak vessels to age their wines in Rioja. So I'm led to believe that this is kind of the aging vessel that they're using is a large oak vessel. There was a pretty heavy mineral component to this, as I alluded on the white wine portion. Wines from the old world, tend to have that minerality as a component piece. So with that said, I've gotten some key information. I've determined that the wine is a developing wine. It had I didn't talk about the fruit character. So the character on the fruit on the nose, for me, were less ripe. There was a decaying note to all of the fruit qualities. Certainly going into that raspberry cough drop thing. That's to me that's kind of things transitioning into more decayed notes. So with that said, we had the minerality, we have a developing wine, we have some decaying notes, we had all that earthiness and mushroomy quality to the wine. It's provided information to me that is, once again, leading me down a path to what I think this wine is. So with that, we're going to conclude the portion on aroma and nose for this session. So part 3 We'll do the taste assessment on the palate, and then we'll do a taste assessment on what the structure of the wine is. And by that I mean, what the alcohol levels are, acidity, body texture, those types of things. All key clues to what the wine could ultimately be. So thank you for indulging me in this. Let's have a great day, and I'll see you next time.